actually saw your post today about motherhood.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh,
Do
sweet.
you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I created that post because it's Black Maternal Health Week, and I had a really interesting journey. I during the pandemic got pregnant in Hawaii. I moved to Hawaii probably like the beginning of 2021 for a I moved to Hawaii for a workshop, a dome building workshop, and just fell in love and was like, well, the rest of the world is on pause. I think I'm going to stay right here. This is a nice place to get stuck. So I stuck around and I ended up getting pregnant, and I had a completely wild pregnancy, meaning I didn't go to the doctor once. I never got an ultrasound. And then I had a completely free birth, and I just had two doulas with me and my child's father and a couple of friends. And it was just this amazing experience in the jungle of Hawaii. And it was just really important for me, given the context of Black women giving birth in hospitals, that I had full sovereignty and just that every decision made around my pregnancy and birth was truly my own. It's a money-making system, not a care-providing system. You are just another number, and particularly for Black women, experience a lot of racism. They experience not being heard, not being advocated for, just being drugged, and just kind of out of it to the point where decisions are just kind of made for you. And, I'm not saying that, like, there are emergencies, right? Like, some women need to be in a hospital. And I'm not saying that just discouraging all hospital births, but I think it's important for women to know that they have choices, that they have other options. And I think the way that the system has kind of promoted home birth as being dangerous is blasphemy. Like, who wouldn't want to be in their own home, surrounded by family, surrounded by people that they love and trust? And to say that, like, a woman birthing naturally is dangerous is just insane to me, and it's major propaganda, and again, just an agenda for money. My birth itself, I had a home birth, and I was in a water tub, and it was like 36 hours. It was not glamorous at all. It was painful, but I was just surrounded by beauty and love, and my son was birthed at home and without bright lights, without interventions, without loud noises, and it was phenomenal. And he's like one of the most vibrant beings that I've ever witnessed and experienced, and I really attribute that to how he came into the world. I've always kind of been that oddball in my family, in my friend groups. I kind of, after I did the whole like going to school and going to college and being an athlete and being the good, student and athlete, and then once I graduated college, I was just kind of like, whose life am I living? And I just took back my path, and ever since then, I haven't looked back. And I've been living a very unconventional lifestyle. And I think all of that has been kind of leading up to the moment of me giving birth, which was just like the full reclamation of me standing in my power and not wavering on that. It was very much set up for me to work a corporate 9 to 5. And I was just like, nope, I'm not. And so I started full-time modeling for like Nike, Adidas, all these different sports brands. But because I had a lot of free time, I was pretty much a freelancer. I had an agent, but I worked for myself essentially. And I just started studying yoga, meditation, basically all these different wellness and healing modalities. And for the 15 years that I was modeling, I like became a yoga teacher, did a yoga teacher training. And I just like went down this path and journey of self-discovery and really just getting to the core of who I am and what I want out of life. And I'm still on that journey. What surprises me the most is my willingness to like continuously transform my life. I've had so many like rebirths, and it always surprises me. I'm like, wow, I didn't think I could get any more, I didn't think I could die and be reborn again until it happens. And then I'm like, wow, another transformation. Okay, all right. And I think that's like my favorite part about myself is just my willingness to continue to grow, and like my willingness to accept that I don't know anything. It's like the more and more I live, I'm just like, wow, the universe is so amazing and so incredible. And I don't know anything. I'm just this tiny little speck. And the more and more I peel back the layers, I'm just like, wow, this journey is incredible. And yeah, I think I'm just not afraid to grow and to transform and to start over again. I think that's like what surprises me. I love change. Like I crave it. And I think a lot of people are afraid of it. I see a lot of people just kind of stuck on one path, in one job, in one relationship. And I'm just like, wow. Like no shade, right? Like that's your choice, but I want to get the most out of this life as possible. And so that's meant like picking up and moving to a new place for a couple of years, and then picking up and moving to a different place for a couple of years, and being in a relationship for 5 years. And then, you know what, this isn't aligning anymore for me. And so like, I still have love for you, but it's time to move on. You know, I think I love like pushing those edges, and like I said, just continuing to grow and to transform and not being afraid to start over again. Motherhood has really grounded me in a tremendous way, but I don't think that necessarily things have changed so much. I think I'm a lot more intentional. Like I'm not going to just pick up now and move to a new place without seriously considering layers of things, right? But once my child gets a little bit older, I'm gonna be like, hey, like come with me. Like let's go, you know, to Mexico and put you in that nature school I've been following for years. Like I don't think that it'll change, but I do think my priorities have shifted a lot. And you know, the first year of my child's life, I was in Hawaii, and that was great, but it also got really hard because I quickly realized like, oh, I need a lot of help. This is not a journey that's meant to be done alone. And so I moved back to LA to be closer to family and to be closer to community and friends. And so I didn't think I would be back in LA so soon. But yeah, my priorities are a lot different now. And I want my kid to be raised alongside his grandparents and cousins and aunties. And so yeah, it slowed me down a little bit, but I don't think like my perspective has changed any bit. Particularly for mothers, it's really, really challenging to be in these nuclear families. I don't think it was ever meant to be this way. I think we were always meant to be together raising children with layers and layers and layers of support. And I see the impact of the separation, and, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. And I think it's so important that like we kind of shift out of this individual mindset and return to a more community-based mindset where like you're calling up your friends that have kids and checking on them like, hey, how you doing? Can I bring you some food? Have you slept? We're so into this like grind culture where everyone's just so focused on work and hustle and I got to get mine. But actually, I think like we would all be a lot better off if we took care of each other and took a more communal approach. And I don't think I really understood that until I had a child. I still have this like deep longing to live in community, live in intentional community with other people that have the same values. I want my kids to be able to just run outside and go knock on someone's door and like I know who's out there. I'm trusting. It's funny, like I'll take my son for a walk sometimes and around the neighborhood, and he'll like go and knock on random people's doors. And sometimes they'll kind of come outside and be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you in my yard? And I don't know. I think like he even naturally, instinctually kind of gets it. Like, hey, come talk to me. Like, you're my neighbor, and I want that for him. And there's this deep longing within me to like give that to him. Yeah, I just felt so isolated, and I felt like everyone just kind of continued on with their life, and this major thing happened to me. Like I just gave birth, and my entire world shifted. And probably for like the first month or so, we had people bringing us food, and we had visitors, and then it was just crickets. And it was just me and my child and my son's father. And I just felt so alone. I was depressed. And I just like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to pull myself out of this like self-pity spiral. And it wasn't until I came back home to LA, and was embraced by family, and then really embraced by this community that I found around meditation and yoga at the studio that I now work at. It's like, it's been life-changing to be held by community through motherhood. The entire probably first year of my son's life, I kind of forgot about my practice. Like I had been practicing yoga and meditation for about 10 years. And then I got pregnant, and it kind of I was just like in the busyness and just kind of in the survival mode of, oh shit, I'm a new mom and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I'm just figuring it all out. And it wasn't until I actually moved back home and found this studio right around the corner from my house that I was reminded like, oh yeah, meditation, yoga. Like these are the fundamentals that have been a part of my path and journey for almost a decade, if not more. And once I returned to a consistent practice, I noticed I had way more energy, way more patience, way more of a capacity to just deal with being a mother. And so I really want to continue to share that practice with as many people that I can, especially moms, because I know how easy it is to be overwhelmed, overstimulated, to feel isolated, to feel just like it's all too much. And it is all too much for one person, honestly. But when you have tools, it helps so much. And then when you have a community that is continuously reminding you of those tools, it's been everything. Birth and death, I often see as like the same door. And there's tremendous grief that can come through giving birth, and obviously from experiencing a death. And yeah, I agree. Like, everyone shows up in those first couple weeks, few weeks, and pours their love into you. But then you're just left to deal with everything else alone. And it's crazy. Even like, I realized too how much attention I got from being pregnant, because you can visibly see like walking around with this huge belly, and everybody wanted to stop and talk to me or point out my belly or be like, oh my God, like wanted to tell me all these nice things. And everyone puts so much emphasis on the birth. Like, this is the event. And postpartum, it's just like, okay, bye, good luck, and it's like, actually, that's when I need the most support. As a society, we've really lost sight of just valuing, I think, like raising children in general. And, to me, I'm like, wow, this is such an honor. We're really like shaping the next generation. This is so important. We're leaving a legacy on planet Earth. Like, don't y'all want to be a part of that? And I think like the health and well-being of a mother particularly, but parents, mom and dad, is going to indicate how successful that child ends up. And so if mom and dad are exhausted, drained, don't have any capacity to show up emotionally for that child, then they're going to end up suffering. That child's going to end up suffering. Then we're going to have a whole nother generation of kids that grow up to be adults that didn't get what they needed. It's a full-time job, because you're not only, like, when you go to work, you may have to do some physical labor. You most likely have to do some mental labor. But being a parent is physical labor, it's mental labor, it's emotional labor, it's spiritual labor. Like, it is all consuming. And you don't get to say, hey, I think I'm gonna take a sick day today. Or I think I'm gonna take some mental health. I think I'm gonna take a mental health day and just call off. Like, you don't get to check out of parenting. You're on 24/7. And if you have a child like me who still wakes up every 2 hours in the night looking for mama, looking for milk, then you're working overtime. And it is exhausting. And that is why we need layers of support, because parents should be raising their own children, but we don't really live in a society that supports that. And it's crazy to me that we live in a society that doesn't support having longer amounts of time to be with your newborn baby. I look at other countries. You just said in Canada, 9 months. And I've seen, maternity and paternity for up to a year in other countries. And in the US, it's very normal. It's very normalized to return back to work after a couple of months or after a few months. And detrimental, I think, to mama's mental health, to baby's mental health or well-being. And I think that's why we see a lot of postpartum depression, because we're rush, back into society, back to work, back to the grind, back. And it's like, I'm still just trying to figure out who I am now. Like, even if it is with family, I just couldn't imagine this little tiny being that just came into the world and being like, okay, and now I gotta go. And I know parents gotta do what they gotta do, but it's so sad. It's so sad. I still have a hard time leaving my 2-year-old. Like, it still breaks my heart when I have to leave the door and he's like, where are you going? You know, or if he cries, he still cries when I leave sometimes. And, you know, he's at that age now where I'm like, okay, like, I know I gotta give you a little bit of independence, but that's 2 years after, not 2 months. 2 months, we got to do better. So gardening is another passion of mine. I'm starting to grow a little garden in our backyard, but I would really love to have a community garden. As you can see, community is a big passion of mine. So anything that I can find ways to create community is pretty much what I'm up to. So I've been putting together a lot of like mommy and me groups, some mom friends of mine. We're like, okay, if the village isn't here, we're going to create the village. Like, how do we do this? So another mom friend and I, we've been coming up with like, okay, maybe we can have different days where like you take a day and like everyone comes to the house and we have like little co-working session and the kids can just go play and then we'll take turns watching the kids. So yeah, I've been really enjoying just finding ways to gather and to come together. Getting back to our roots, honestly, like none of this stuff is new. I think it's just a remembering of like how we were before all of the technology, and not that technology is bad, you know, but just returning to our roots and getting back to what really matters, which is just being together, being like caring for each other, collective and community care, and enjoying life. Ultimately, like not getting so caught up in the rat race, but actually taking the time to smell the roses and to go watch a sunset, to be in nature, to spend more time with your kids. Because at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, when you're on your deathbed and you look back at your life, like what's really important? It's about the relationships, the people that you impacted, the people you were impacted by, the connections you made, the love that you cultivated. You're not going to be thinking about what car you were driving and what watch you were wearing. Like none of that stuff's going to matter, you know? So that's really what I love talking about.